Hi, I'm the Moonlit Page Turner. Grab your treat, grab your tea. Let's talk books. For this month's read, we are traveling to Bangladesh, and I have two choices for you. They are The Good Muslim by Tahmima Anam and The Storm by Arif Anwar. And both of them deal with some difficult times in Bangladesh history. Now, Bangladesh used to be part of India, and then in the Indian partition of 1947, when the British came in and intervened, they actually became part of Pakistan. They were known as East Pakistan because Pakistan is to the west of India and Bangladesh is to the east. And then in 1971, when we had conflict with India and Pakistan, Bangladesh decided to become its own independent country. And both The Storm and The Good Muslim deal with 1971. And then The Storm also deals with the events of 1947. Before we get into this month's read, let's get into this month's treat. This is Sandesh. And when I was looking up treats from Bangladesh, most of the Bengali desserts have milk in them in some aspect. And so this is no different. This is actually cheese curd that is mixed with powdered sugar and cardamom. And then you have little toppings on top. It's good because it has the sweetness and the cardamom is a little different. And then the texture is a little weird though because it is that kind of granule from the powdered sugar. It is very different though because it doesn't quite taste like cheese. It's kind of like maybe like a cream cheese. That's good. I'm going to start with talking about The Storm by Arif Anwar because this book is more complicated than The Good Muslim. In fact, we have four different time periods that are interwoven together to create the story of The Storm. We start with Hanufa, and this is in 1970, and her villagers have seen the boatman. And the boatman is this like shadowy fisherman that proceed these big storms that they get in Bangladesh. And it is this omen. The storm is the motif that you see throughout the entire story. So Hanufa, her husband is Jameer, and he's a fisherman, and he has gone out for the day, so she doesn't know where he is. And they have a young son, and so she's trying to get him ready and prepared for the storm so they can all go to the big house to be protected together. And that's the very beginning of the story. Then we jump to Shar, and this is in 2004, and Shar is in the United States, and he is about to get deported because he does not have a permanent job, which also means that he has to leave his young daughter behind with her mother. So he's struggling to try to stay in the United States. Then we see in 1946, we have Rahim and Zahira, and this has to do with the partition of India. And so they are in India and they are looking to move to Bangladesh for religious purposes and because of the violence that's happening between the Hindus and the Muslims at the time. And then keep going and then the final subplot story takes place in 1942, and that is between a British citizen, Claire, and a Japanese pilot named Ichiro. And this has to do with what's going on with World War II. So all four stories are intertwined. They do all come together and impact each other, but you don't see that fully until the end. We even find out who the boatman is, who has this ominous presence in this town. I liked this book. Actually, I liked this book a little better than The Good Muslim. However, four time periods and sub stories are just a little too much for me. I could have got done with three instead of four. And so sometimes I got lost with, wait, who's this? Who are we talking about? Whose story is this? They do all come together, but they don't all come together until the end. And there's even some subplots between each of the main four sub stories. So I was kind of impressed with the storytelling in this book. It did get a little complicating, so if you're easily distracted, this may not be for you. But other than that, I think it's definitely worth checking out. The Good Muslim by Tahmima Anam is actually the second book in the series, although you can read it on its own. The first book has to do with the mom of the two characters that are the focus of this book. So we start in 1971 with Sohail. So this book only has two time periods, 1971 and 1984. So Sohail was a soldier during the independence of Bangladesh, and it changes him quite a bit. We see some of what he experiences. He doesn't tell us a whole lot, and he tells his sister Maya a whole nothing. She really wants to know what has happened to him, especially since he has changed so much in character and he does not want to relive it. Maya is mostly the person that we get the story from. And again, her story takes place in 1984. She's in 1971 as well, but we see her perspective of this time period, just like we see Sohail in 1984. Maya is a doctor, sort of. She didn't quite finish her training, but she specializes as an OBGYN in delivering babies in rural towns. And she comes back home because Sohail's wife has died. So she comes to take care of her mother as well as deal with the funeral. Maya's also running away from her responsibilities. In the rural towns that she was in, she is very progressive. And so she wasn't quite appreciated for the information that she was giving. A lot of the citizens of this town thought that what she was doing was disrespectful, as well as going against their traditions and beliefs. So Maya really has to come back and deal with, what are her ideas and what is right and what is wrong, and how do you live in this world that has changed so much. This book deals with family and how family changes over time, but more in particular, how do you live after a revolution? Bangladesh again gets its independence in 1971, and that changes people quite a bit. We see an influx in the Muslim religion with the partition happened in the 40s, but again, you see this influx of being the good Muslim, and what does that mean? And then also having influences from Western worlds as well, because again, it's in the 1970s and the 80s. So we're seeing a lot of changes throughout the world. This book was easier to follow. It does have strong themes, and Maya's a really strong character, and she's struggling in the world that she's in, especially with such a religious brother. She also struggles with Sohail's son being kind of left to his own devices. She really wants to help him because he constantly gets in trouble. He's not really attended to because Sohail is busy and he's in mourning, and he is this huge religious figure. And so other people's time is taking up his. And so his son kind of gets neglected. There is an instance where his son then gets sent away and then runs away. And she hears stuff about what's happening to the son at this religious school. And so she decides to take on the mantle of savior for him. And then there's issues with the mom because she has a heart attack. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in this book. It is the thought process of our world's changing and how do you deal with that? Also, how do you deal with the ramifications of what happens during wartime? Maya, as an OBGYN, often helped women get abortions from the kids that they maybe weren't a willing participant in creating, as happens in wartime. So there's a lot of issues that happen with this book. Again, I really liked both of these books. I thought that the storytelling of The Storm was more intriguing to me with the whole different dynamics of four time periods than The Good Muslim, but I also appreciated the storytelling of Maya and having to be a voice in a world where maybe doesn't appreciate women as much as they did or as much as they could. So both of these books I found really interesting. I know I say that a lot, but they have different aspects to them that really stuck out. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Next month, we are traveling to Barbados. If you're interested in what's coming up for us, please visit us on Goodreads or Instagram. See you then.